Okay, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about yet another example of an attempted go at media suppression by Donald Trump, this time with well known journalist and TV media personality Gayle King. Now, if you've lived in America for any more than a year, there's a good chance you know who Gayle King is. She's been the co anchor of CBS This Morning, or CBS Mornings as they call it now, for over a decade. But even before that, she was a well respected, seasoned journalist whose rise to fame came in the 1990s with NBC's daytime show Cover to Cover. She would eventually go on to host her show, The Gayle King Show, on XM Radio, and later on the Oprah Winfrey Network before she transitioned to CBS. So I wanted to bring this to your attention because what's happening in our country right now is so important. People like Gayle King, people like Adam Mockler from Midas Touch, even people like me, are under attack simply because our views don't align with the Republican parties. Simply because we feel like speaking out against the atrocities this administration carries out every day. Simply for calling it what it is, an authoritarian regime that seeks to suppress the voices of anyone who feel like challenging Donald Trump. So, the fact that Trump will call for the firing of someone just because they don't agree with his policies and won't portray him as this hero of America is absolutely disgusting. So, this article says Trump rips Gayle King, no talent. It says President Trump attacks CBS News anchor Gayle King in a Truth Social post late Monday. Gayle King's career is over. She should have stayed with her belief in Trump. She never had the courage to do so, Trump wrote on his social media platform. No talent, no ratings, no strength. The president shared a link to a New York Post article slamming King and alleging she represents what the Rupert Murdoch-owned newspaper called left-wing bias at the network, casting her future at the network in doubt. CBS is owned by Paramount, which this week is expected to close a mega merger with fellow media conglomerate Skydance. As a part of the merger agreement, New Paramount, as the company will be known, made several promises to the Federal Communications Commission, including more diverse viewpoints represented in news coverage, and an agreement not to implement diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. The merger's approval came just days after Paramount agreed to pay Trump $16 million to settle a lawsuit he brought against CBS over a 60 Minutes interview with former Vice President Kamala Harris and the cancellation of late-night comic Stephen Colbert's program. So, since when has this double standard pertaining to censorship and silencing been in place? All I heard for the last 4 years has been how conservatives were the minority, how all we wanted to do was silence their voice, and how cancel culture was out of control. Everything they touted as radical left-wing nonsense and liberal superiority is exactly what's happening with this administration right now. Now, when talking about freedom of speech, I think it's important to make the distinction between speech suppression and reasonable or justified termination, which relates to the consequences you might acquire if you say something really out of pocket that would potentially target a specific group of people. So, speech suppression is when somebody, whether it be an organization or a single individual, like Trump, limits or prevents the expression of opinions, ideas, or information, often through censorship or other forms of control. So in the case of Trump, this would be like initiating the firing and cancellation of the Stephen Colbert show just because he didn't want his ideas being projected into the public eye. Reasonable or justified termination refers to the lawful and appropriate dismissal of an employee when their actions, behaviors, or speech, such as the use of discriminatory language, being racist, homophobic, sexist, whatever, violate workplace policies, create a hostile or unsafe environment, or breach legal and ethical standards. So this would be like me firing my employee for using language that specifically targets a certain group of people. Most companies are not going to want somebody who's openly racist or openly homophobic to be their employee because it reflects extremely poorly on their establishment. Number one, they're losing business because of you. Nobody in their right mind, or at least I hope, would invest in or support a company who openly hires bigoted individuals. And secondly, you miss out on further opportunities to advance yourself because of the way you treated other people. Companies are much more inclined to give somebody a promotion if they're kind, respectful, and treat everybody with the same level of appreciation you would want to have yourself. So, some people might argue that they should be able to say whatever they want regardless of the implications it has on other people, and I wholeheartedly disagree. Just like it would be unfair for somebody to say something like all black people are inherently predisposed to committing crimes, it would be unfair for me to say something like all white people or all whites are inherently racist, homophobic, and prey on the downfall of every single minority group there is. Like it's a lose-lose situation, nobody wins, and everyone goes home feeling discouraged, hurt, and offended. So, what I want people to know when pointing this out is that many people think that speech protection equates to you being able to say whatever you want without any repercussions or accountability for your actions, which is obviously not true. You can say whatever you want, be my guest, but if you do, be prepared that there might be consequences to your actions. I will continue to relentlessly push back against the Trump administration and their egregious actions and attacks towards liberal media, but I can only grow stronger with your support. If you like this video, please subscribe, like, share, hit that notification bell. With your help, we can grow a community of resistance, but until then, thank you guys once again. Take it easy. Bye.